Have you been wondering why your appeal to the Board of Veterans Appeals has been sitting, waiting for years without a decision? I'm going to break down the board's current backlog and best practices for getting a decision as soon as possible if you have to appeal to the board.
Let's just start talking about it. A lot of people call and say they've been waiting for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Is that normal? What is the backlog right now?
So unless your case is expedited, you're going to be waiting at the board currently 4 to 5 years. That's it. Full stop.
It's a long time.
It's an outrageous amount of time, especially, for vets who aren't working or, need this money to survive.
That's the general rule, 4 to 5 years at the board.
Right.
And then what's the deal with all these different appeal lines? And do they have different timeframes, or kind of break it down a little bit?
Yeah. So I get a lot of people who say they went to the board's website. I'm going to share that here. This is from bva.va.gov. The board has a website giving all this data on the current number of pending appeals, how long they're taking to decide. And this chart here shows their average years to complete board appeals. The green column is legacy appeals. So these are appeals that were filed to the board before the Appeals Modernization Act in 2019. And then you have these AMA appeals, which are essentially all the appeals since then. So most people are in AMA now. The legacy appeal backlog, or the timeliness, is actually accurate. I had a legacy board appeal decided today that was filed in May of 2020. So just hair under 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the board's focus right now. They're devoting all their attention to legacy appeals. They want to clear out all these legacy appeals so they can then focus on AMA appeals. Their data on these AMA appeals is extremely misleading. They're not lying. This is their average, but this is only the average. Back in 2019, it was 4 months, or, now it's 1.8 years. That average is so low because the only AMA appeals that the board is currently deciding are appeals that have been advanced on the docket. And so there's 3 ways you can get your board appeal put at the front of the line, and that's to be age 75 or more, have a terminal illness, or have a severe financial hardship. And so if you fall into one of those categories, you'll get put at the front of the line, and the board generally will decide those appeals within 90 days. And so that's how they're keeping this advertised average so low. It's literally only decisions that they're deciding. I shouldn't say only. 95% of the decisions in the AMA have been advanced on the docket.
So those advancement strategies, or I don't know what to call them, is that the same in legacy appeals?
Yeah.
Are they focusing on those cases as well in the legacy? Why wouldn't that impact it the same?
Because they've already cleared all the advanced cases in legacy.
Okay.
Yeah. And all new appeals are AMA.
Okay.
So normal AMA cases are just stacking up. If you get advanced, you're good. If you're not advanced, you're currently going to be waiting. I just had a decision. It took about 3 years, 8 months for a direct review, which I guess is a good segue into your appeal options at the board and how those, whatever you choose, can impact how quickly you get a decision. So when you appeal to the board, you have 3 choices. You can do a direct review, which is where you are not allowed to add any evidence.
Mm-hmm.
The board's only going to look at evidence up to the date of the decision that you're appealing. You can do the evidence lane, which allows you to add additional evidence 90 days after you file your board appeal. Or you can request a hearing, which is where you'll have a one-on-one with a veterans law judge, and then you'll have 90 days after that hearing to submit any new evidence. Each of those options is progressively longer.
Mm-hmm.
When the board, or when VA implemented AMA, they promised, this is back in 2019, that they would issue decisions on direct review appeals, so where you don't add any new evidence, within 1 year. And that sounded amazing. And they actually did that for that first year, like 2019, maybe 2020. And then after that, it just got out of control. I just got a direct review appeal that took about 3 years, 10 months to get a decision on 4 times longer than their promise. So direct review appeals are still quicker. Evidence lane and hearing lanes are going to take longer. And so in our cases, our goal is to have all the evidence that we need to win the case already in the file before we go to the board, so that we can select the direct review option and get a decision from the board as soon as possible. Like I said, evidence lane and hearing lane take the longest, especially hearing lane. You're probably looking at 5 to 6 years. So I just got back from a conference, National Organization of Veterans Advocates. It's a continuing legal education group where I stay up to date on law. We have a conference 2 times a year. VA comes and speaks with us on what they're working on. And one of the presenters was a former veterans law judge. And his advice was to never request a board hearing. And this is coming from a veterans law judge. And I agree with him. There are very few situations where you want to request a hearing because they just take too long.
What are the situations that you would think?
The situations where we request hearings are where we feel it's really important for the veteran to be face-to-face with the judge and give their own personal testimony. So like military sexual trauma cases, where we're trying to prove that the sexual assault occurred and we don't have actual documentation, the veteran's own testimony can be really powerful. So something like that, we may request a case, or if a veteran has an extremely severe physical disability that's visible and we want the judge to see it, maybe we'll request a hearing there. Every other case, you don't need a hearing. If there's testimony that you need to get into the record from the veteran, you can do it through a written statement. And written statements are also controllable. You know, when I go to a hearing, you know, my clients can say anything. You know, I prep them for the hearing, but people are nervous. This is oftentimes the first time they've ever been, you know, in a court. And, you know, sometimes someone will just ramble on and they'll start saying things that are not helpful for their case. So with a written statement, you know, it can be reviewed, you can nail it down, get exactly what you need into the record.
Do you know generally how long requesting a board hearing, how long that adds to the wait time?
It's going to add about another year or two.
Okay.
So 4 years maybe for a direct review. Add another year or two if you're requesting a hearing.
And then, I mean, we touched on this already, but I want to back up to the advancement. When you said hardship, give an example of what qualifies for that. Is it, hey, I'm staying on my friend's couch because I can't afford rent anymore?
Yeah, it could. So they loosely define it as homelessness, risk of homelessness, bankruptcy, foreclosure. The board, if you file a motion for advancement on the docket, they're going to require you to submit documentation, whether it's your terminal illness or this financial hardship. And they are getting more and more stingy on granting these. I had a veteran, we filed a motion for advancement based on him having to file bankruptcy. And the board rejected it, which I was floored about because their website still lists that as a valid reason for being advanced on the docket. And in the letter they sent to us when they rejected us, they deleted bankruptcy because the letter says you filed a motion, we're denying it, we only grant it for these reasons. And up until this letter I got a couple months ago, all their prior letters always said one of those reasons is bankruptcy. And now I got this new letter and they deleted bankruptcy from it. Their website still says bankruptcy, but it's not a hard standard. They can essentially do what they want. We refiled that motion. We're still waiting on a decision.
So an eviction notice?
Yeah, it looks like they're moving towards homelessness as the standard or imminent risk of homelessness.
Okay.
So eviction notice, past due rent, foreclosure notice, past due mortgage. I would also try past due utility bills, water, electricity, heat. I think those will still work. And there's no harm in trying. You know, the worst they can do is say no. So if you think you have a financial hardship that qualifies, go for it. General financial difficulties are not going to work. I had one vet who had, $40,000 in credit card debt. The board rejected that as just being a general financial difficulty.
And then with the terminal illness, there's a ton of people who have cancer that are terminally ill, but they're not dying at the end of the year. So where's the line on that? How do they figure that out, whether or not it's going to qualify you?
The best thing you can do is get a letter from your doctor, putting a time frame on it. there's no bright line rule about what qualifies. I had a colleague get an advancement denied for like stage 4 lung cancer, which I'm pretty sure that's terminal in 95% of cases.
Right.
I was floored by that. So yeah, they're overworked. They have too many cases. They don't have enough judges. They're becoming more and more conservative on approving these motions for advancement.
Okay. In the event you do get advanced, though, what is it? How does it speed you up?
Yeah, I mean, once the board grants a motion for advancement, you'll usually have a decision within 30 to 90 days. That's the
Okay.
average I'm seeing.
All right.
And they're working to address the backlog. My opinion is that the only thing they can do is hire more judges. I believe they're up to somewhere around 140 judges. A couple of years ago, they were like at 115, 120.
Mm-hmm.
But they just need people to work. That's it. And then, I don't know, that you have a lot of new judges now, and I've seen an uptick in just really bad decisions, like simple errors, like missing evidence, or I write an entire brief on this argument and the board doesn't even address my argument. And so they're being pressured to work quicker and quicker, and quality suffers.
Well, there's got to be a learning curve there too.
Yeah.
VA laws and regulations are really specific, and so it takes time to learn them and understand them.
It does. I've been doing this for 11 years now, and I still don't know everything. Never will.
So the current backlog, 4 to 5 years, everybody gets in line. Everybody's deserving. Everybody's waiting. Most people are in fairly dire situations. So one person's hardship usually doesn't elevate you above your brothers and sisters, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way to cut the line except for those 3 exceptions. If I had people, say, oh, I'm going to write my congressperson, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
All that's going to happen is your congressperson's going to reach out to the board. The board's going to send back a generic email saying, thanks for inquiring. This veteran filed his appeal or her appeal on this date. They're currently waiting in line, and they'll be decided in the order that they're received.
Maybe the focus of the letter could be hiring more judges.
Yeah. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's what they need to do. And I know they are working on that, but they have to get approval from Congress and funding.
Right.
So hopefully the backlog goes down. I haven't seen it. It's been on the uptick over the past 4 or 5 years, but I'm hopeful that one day they'll get this under control, especially the direct review line. If we could get board decisions within 1 year, that would be amazing. So yeah, that's why you're waiting. The stats on the board's website are deceiving because they're averaging in the advanced cases, which are pretty much the only cases they're deciding right now. But currently, if you file a board appeal, expect to wait on average 4 to 5 years to get a decision.
All right. It's a bummer, but it's the facts.
It is. If you found this useful, please please subscribe. We love doing these videos, and we hope you guys find them helpful.
Bye.